President, today I am delivering a budget of confidence in this island. Not an ill-conceived or misplaced confidence, but a confidence built on the solid policy foundations that have been put in place in the previous two budgets of this administration. But confidence should not be misinterpreted as complacency, for there are many challenges ahead of us, perhaps more than at any other time in our recent history. But that in itself is not a cause for retrenchment or caution, and I have long supported the mantra that with every challenge and change comes opportunity. This island and its people have consistently proved that we can change and thrive in new circumstances. Indeed, the list of external challenges is somewhat long and distinguished. The global economy is full of possible permutations, international stock markets unpredictable, and country debt in some quarters alarming. Closer to home, not only do we have the uncertainty of Brexit, but other closely aligned matters concerning our relationship with the EU and the international community on taxation, substance and financial services. And at home, we have many hurdles to clear. A major review into our health and social care service delivery mechanism, a significant debate on public sector pensions, the post office, education, the steam packet, growing our working population, growing and diversifying our business and industry, tackling the cost of living, providing for the disadvantaged, improving the mechanisms for delivering public services, to name but a few, and that list is also long and distinguished. But, honourable members, rather than view these many and difficult matters with a sense of foreboding, we should meet them with a sense of optimism. Optimism because tackling each represents a better and more progressive future for our island, and optimism because we have the foundations in place to meet these challenges head on. In my first budget in 2017, we set out a 5-year financial plan to instil confidence in public finances, and in this, my third budget, there is credible evidence that we are creating the sustainable base that we wanted for the future. That 5-year plan set out plans to meet the shortfall in public sector pension payments when the Pensions Reserve Fund is depleted in 2022, ensuring minimal risk to public services and the economy. That 5-year plan set out strong cost controls. That 5-year plan set out to control pay in a reasonable and fair manner. That 5-year plan set out prudent financial forecasts. That 5-year plan set out not austerity, Mr. Deputy President, but prudent requirements for departments to deliver their public service commitments in a focused and efficient manner. We have also taken quantified risks. We have moved to increase personal allowances at a greater rate than ever before, despite the potential cost impacts. And we have started to increase support to our working families through child benefit and employed persons allowance. We have invested in early years education. We have invested in targeted public spending. And we have also managed to cope with the deficit spending from the Health Department, investing an unplanned additional £21 million into the nation's health since this plan was put together, but without distracting from our overall financial objectives. And where are we today, honourable members? Let me take you to the bottom line. The budget last year forecast a surplus of £10 million for this financial year. But today, as a result of the success of our economy, the hard work of our citizens, our commitments to control spending, we are now forecasting a surplus of just under £28 million. That's right, honourable members, £28 million. That's £18 million more than was estimated, generated by better than expected income receipts, more people in work, more spending in our economy, and the majority of departments sticking to their budgets. I must recognise that the recent announcement by the DHSC and other spending pressures in government, particularly in the Department of Home Affairs, may require some additional support. But this extra funding can be found from the contingency fund, subject, of course, to Tynwald approval. But £18 million more than forecast gives me 18 million reasons to bring forward a budget of confidence. And let me start the ball rolling by getting straight to recognising and supporting the people of this island who should inspire us with their commitment and hard work to improving their lives. 2 years ago, personal allowances stood at £10,500. Today, it is £13,250. In April, honourable members, I am proposing that it will rise again to £14,000 with no change to the tax bands. Yeah. We are retaining the 10% tax band at £6,500, and this measure will therefore again ensure that all taxpayers are better off and should see 1,500 people removed from the scope of income tax. Individual taxpayers will be up to £150 better off, or up to £300 better off as a jointly assessed couple. Honourable members, the cumulative impact of these three increases in the last budgets have been to remove over 6,500 individuals from paying income tax, putting as much as £500 back into the pockets of individuals and £1,000 for jointly assessed couples, maintaining our commitment to supporting the hard-working families of our island. Honourable members, we can be confident that we are an island that is inclusive and caring. Our focus remains on supporting our working families and building an inclusive society. But in doing so, we remain adamant that welfare spending is appropriately targeted and fair, both in terms of the criteria for receipt and the recognition of our need to provide support to key groups. In general terms, therefore, our benefit payments will be increased by the rate of inflation at the customary reference points for benefits uprating, which was 2.4% in September 2018. This is the same rate of increase as the UK. But we are not going to stop here. Not only will personal allowances help, but I am proposing today that we increase child benefit for the third budget in succession, this time by 5%, which is more than double the rate of inflation. This at a time when the UK government has frozen its rate of child benefit for the fourth successive year. This increase will mean that parents receiving the benefit of an additional £57.20 for the first child and an additional £36.40 per year for the second and other children. Therefore, from April, parents on the Isle of Man will be £98.80 a year better off than those in the UK for the first child and £62.40 better off for additional children. Last year, we also gave support to our working families with younger children by committing an additional £1.5 million for preschool credits. But this government also recognises that it is increasingly more difficult to help support Manx students attending universities and higher education in the United Kingdom. I am therefore announcing and proposing today that we commit an additional £1.5 million to the Department of Education, Sport and Culture to use in a scheme to help parents and families support those students. This money will be ring-fenced for this purpose, and the department itself will announce full details of how this funding is to be applied as soon as possible. These measures will benefit low to middle income earners on the island, and I am also proposing to go further to help the lower paid by increasing the basic allowances for employed persons allowance by 0.5% above inflation to 2.9% to ensure that families on low incomes will benefit from the increase in the primary earnings threshold for national insurance contributions from April, as other workers will. And I will explain in a few moments about the national insurance changes. I also wish to do more for the working disabled in our community. For disabled workers, I am proposing that we increase the employed persons allowance by 5%. Additionally, I am pleased to announce that the rates of disability, living allowance and attendance allowance for our carers are proposed to be increased above inflation to 3.4% from April, and that amounts of the disability premiums for each of the income-related benefits will be increased by 5%. And I also want to give greater support to vulnerable people, particularly the elderly on low incomes, to help them meet their winter fuel bills. Therefore, I am proposing increasing the amount of the winter bonus from £300 to £350. This represents a 17% increase and the first time this allowance has been increased for 10 years. Yeah. This government is taking steps to support the more vulnerable in the community. As I announced last year, honourable members, we will continue to follow the UK's so-called triple lock-up rating of state pensions for the lifetime of the UK Parliament. Therefore, I can confirm that, as will be the case in the United Kingdom, basic state retirement pensions in the island will increase by 2.6% from the week commencing the 8th of April 2019. For those with a basic full state pension, this will mean an increase of £169 per year. Furthermore, the additional state pension will increase by 2.4% from April, in line with prices inflation. Overall, the cost of these increases in the island is estimated to be £3.7 million per annum. Honourable members, staying with pensions, as planned, the new single-tier Manx state pension will be introduced in April this year. I can confirm that the full rate of the new Manx state pension will be £184.15 a week on its introduction. This is in accordance with the resolution of this Honourable Court made in July 2016 for the new single-tier state pension to be £170 a week, revalued in line with increases to the basic state pension since that date. Some people who have accrued significant amounts of additional state pension up to the 5th of April 2019 may, of course, get more than this amount, whilst others who have been contracted out of employments for considerable time will most likely get less than this amount. What I can say, Mr Deputy President, is that officers from the Income Tax Division will be on standby to offer advice and guidance to those who may need it. As agreed by this Honourable Court in July 2016, the value of the Manx pension supplement for new pensioners will gradually be diminished over a 20-year period starting from April. It would therefore seem to me to be inequitable to increase it for existing pensioners. So I propose that the current rates of the Manx pension supplement will not be increased from April. As has happened in previous years, the pension supplement scheme has been amended in order to avoid what would have otherwise been an automatic increase. Honourable members, in April 2017 we introduced the new bereavement support payment, which provides for a very straightforward and easy to satisfy contribution condition and standard rates of allowance payable for a fixed period of 18 months. Following recent representations, I have decided to give more help to bereaved families with very young children. I can confirm, therefore, that I shall be bringing an order to this Honourable Court next month, which will, where relevant, extend the period for which this benefit can be paid to the 6th birthday of the youngest or only child of a bereaved family. I believe extending it to the child's 6th birthday will give their parent the additional support in adjusting to these very difficult circumstances. Honourable members, it pays to be in work. The increase in the Isle of Man minimum wage from 1st of October last year resulted in a welcome widening of the gap between the maximum job seeker's allowance payable to a single job seeker and the amount of take-home pay a worker would have received at minimum wage levels. For an individual aged 25 or over, based on a 40-hour week, that gap is now over £67 a week. Whilst for an individual aged between 18 and 24, again, based on a 40-hour week, that gap is almost £88 a week. Last year, this Honourable Court agreed to significant changes in incapacity benefits and funeral payments, intending to simplify and rationalise provision in these areas, and I am grateful to Honourable members for supporting those changes. In social housing, we are continuing to support the vulnerable with investment in social housing. We have £2 million set aside in our capital programme for further works at Clackvane and Ballasalla, and £1.9 million in next year's budget for minor capital works to refurbish and repair the existing stock. Turning to national insurance, in my budget speech last year, I announced that Class 2 national insurance contributions that are paid by the self-employed would be abolished from April 2019. In September last year, the UK Chancellor announced that the abolition of Class 2 had been postponed to at least until after the next election. I have considered, therefore, the nature of the current reciprocal agreement that operates between the island and the United Kingdom. It would not be practical at this time for the island to abolish Class 2 contributions, as the UK have not, and therefore I announce today that Class 2 contributions will continue to be paid by the self-employed for the foreseeable future. The 2017-2018 tax year once again saw steady growth in national insurance contributions, and this trend has continued into the 2018-2019 tax year. I therefore expect receipts this year to be £4 million above estimate. I am again therefore proposing to freeze the rates of national insurance paid by employees, employers and the self-employed for the 2019-2020 tax year, so that the island remains a competitive place to do business. The lower earnings limit is the point at which an employee starts to build up entitlement to national insurance funded benefits. In this current tax year, it is £116 per week. The UK has announced that from the 6th of April it will increase to £118 per week, and I propose that the Isle of Man should continue to keep the same level as the United Kingdom, and therefore the lower earnings limit will be increased to £118 per week in the island from the 6th of April 2019. The earnings threshold is the point at which both employees and employers start to pay national insurance, and it is currently £118 per week. I propose to increase this amount to £125 per week, saving all employees £40 a year in national insurance and employers £46 a year for each employee. As a result of this increase, the starting point at which a self-employed person starts to pay Class 4 national insurance contributions will rise from £6,136 to £6,500, saving them £29 per annum. Honourable members, we are demonstrating our commitments to an inclusive and caring society, and we can also be confident that we are a healthy and safe island. Last month, this Honourable Court received the interim progress report from Sir Jonathan Michael, with the final report to come in May 2019. This will provide Tynwald with a number of options that will shape the future of our health and social care system. I confirmed in Tynwald last month that Treasury had already approved funding from the Healthcare Transformation Fund in order to address some of the immediate change requirements, and some £4 million will be available to act on Tynwald's support or otherwise in respect of the Michael recommendations. I want to thank everyone who has and is inputting into this report, and I look forward to that debate in May. We can and we must get behind our health professionals in finding a new and exciting way forward for the delivery of integrated healthcare on this island. In terms of the actual budget for the Health and Social Care Department next year, alongside a 2% increase for pay worth £2.1 million, we are providing an additional £3 million to further support staffing and additional pharmaceutical costs. In total, that is an additional £5.1 million in additional funding for the department, which brings our 3-year total of additional funding, including overspends, to £42 million for the Department of Health and Social Care. Honourable members, our NHS would be nothing without the staff it employs, and I want to thank all the staff in that department for their continued dedication and hard work, and for their support during the Independent Health and Social Care Review. Within our capital programme, we are investing a further £13.6 million of funding within health and social care, including £550,000 per annum in the next 4 years for new radiology equipment. The issue of poor mental health is also an increasing concern in today's society. People with mental illness also bear a disproportionate burden of physical ill health relating to lifestyle factors. We must continue to tackle mental health, and we are proposing to allocate £1.7 million to Get Enreached and £1.5 million to Grania Court for infrastructure improvements designed to help, treat and support those who need it. Last year, I announced that the introduction of the soft drinks industry levy had been postponed on the island until the 1st of April 2019. This postponement was due to the fact that the UK needed to introduce legislative changes to allow for the movement of soft drink products between the UK and the Isle of Man without the need to treat the goods as imports or exports. We are confident that these changes, which are included in the United Kingdom Finance Act 2019, will receive royal assent before the 1st of April this year, and that the Isle of Man will therefore be able to introduce the duty on the 1st of April as planned. Income raised under this duty is estimated to be £300,000 in 2019-2020, and it will be ring-fenced to be utilised by the Department of Health and Social Care, who plan to use it initially for weight management in children and families, breastfeeding initiatives and the promotion of oral hygiene. Turning to the Department of Home Affairs. Honourable members, we live in one of the safest places in the world. Our quality of life is envied by many, and our low levels of crime are a significant factor in attracting new businesses and people to the island. The safety and security that we enjoy are precious, but we must not take them for granted. I know that honourable members have often spoken about their support for the Isle of Man Constabulary in the work that it does to keep us safe. I fully share and endorse those views, and I recognise that the Constabulary is facing many pressures that now need addressing. I am therefore proposing that we provide the Department of Home Affairs with £3.4 million of additional funding next year, which includes an additional £2.5 million to be invested in our police force to help keep our islands safe now and into the future. Although this will not mean a return to the policing levels of 10 years ago, it will give the Chief Constable the means to tackle new and emerging threats to our safety in imaginative ways. Neighbourhood policing will be redesigned and modernised, with extra officers being provided to tackle offending and antisocial behaviour across the island. It will also provide more effective support to vulnerable people. Additional officers will be put into the fight against serious and organised crime. There will be more officers in place to target the importation of Class A drugs and to help take the profit out of drug dealing. There will also be extra officers in place to investigate serious sexual offences and to provide support to victims of abuse. In January, the Government's road safety strategy for the next 10 years was approved by Tynwald, and in this budget we have provided £227,000 for 4 additional road policing officers that will allow the Constabulary to fully deliver on that strategy. Ensuring our officers are equipped now and in the future to deal with the challenges of the 21st century policing is a priority. That is why we have also committed to a major investment in police training and development. On top of these additional funds for policing, the Department of Home Affairs will receive funding for fire service training and for additional staff within the community service team, which will then ensure that adequate alternative sentencing options are available for the judiciary. And further, Mr. President, from our capital programme, we will be investing a further £4.6 million in our safety and security next year. Part of that investment is funding the fight against financial crime, with £707,000 set aside for new technology to allow the Economic Crime Unit to become even more effective. In our 5-year capital programme, we have £6 million set aside for the renewal and replacement of equipment and £7.5 million for emergency vehicles to ensure our police and fire and rescue services have the resources they need to ensure the island remains a safe place and that we live our lives free from crime and danger. Additionally, an investigation continues to try and identify a long-term and multidisciplinary solution for a new Emergency Services Douglas headquarters with £475,000 set aside in 2019-2020, as well as support to assess the scope and condition of the current police headquarters. Honourable members, we are investing in the safety and security of our island. We can also be confident, honourable members, that we are an island of enterprise and opportunity. Now, if we are to be successful, we must have a diverse economy where people choose to work and invest. I can report today that we are delivering on that objective and can assure business that we have plans to continue strong economic growth. In a 2018 opinion on the island's credit profile, Moody's Investor Services said they consider the island's economic strength to be high, underpinned by a high wealth levels and a track record of strong economic growth. They report that our economy has comparatively higher degrees of diversification than other economies of a similar size, and it is this diversification which has been supported by specific government policies that have proven to sustain our economy during the financial crisis. We are seeing positive growth in our exporting industries and encouraging stability in our domestic sectors. Our e-gaming, insurance and ICT sectors are still expanding with double-figure growth predicted this year. Our banking sector is also showing healthy signs of growth, with the alternative banking regime leading to the first new banking licence in the island for over 20 years. The Department for Enterprise's new executive agency are taking charge of a productive private-public sector partnership, delivering a number of new initiatives and committing to a range of strategic actions designed to support this administration's programme for government objectives and the wider economic needs of our island. This budget allows for the executive agencies to deliver the objectives through the utilisation of the Marketing Initiative Fund and Economic Development Fund. It is early days for those agencies, but in this coming financial year, their contribution must be significant. Their role is to grow jobs and income for the nation. They need to set themselves ambitious goals, and if their performance needs to be measured so that we can monitor the progress. Supported by Digital Isle of Man, the island's digital sectors are leading the way in regards to GDP and employment. E-gaming has now overtaken insurance as the island's largest sector and is continuing to grow and evolve, with new businesses, products and markets regularly coming to fruition. This year, the Isle of Man has committed to a strategic direction in the area of blockchain technology, putting up innovative solutions for modern technology and business needs. And in October, Tynwald approved a new telecom strategy, and today we are proposing to commit £2 million to the continuation of this, subject to negotiation with potential private sector providers. It is clear to me that government will need to finance some of the rollout of superfast broadband where it is not commercially viable to do so. Turning to Finance Isle of Man. Finance Isle of Man has instigated an international campaign for the life assurance sector, reaching countries around the world with a clear message of strength, stability and security. Financial and professional services remain an essential part of the island's economy, with over 40 years of experience in supporting an international client base. It is encouraging to see the continuing innovation in this sector, with projects moving forward this year regarding digital ID, crowdfunding and new savings products for the Isle of Man. The domestic economy has faced some challenges in recent years, but signs are encouraging for a shift of fortune, particularly in the catering and hospitality sectors. It is clear that domestic businesses can prosper if they deliver great services. Uncertainty around Brexit, though, remains a potential threat to both our aerospace and manufacturing sectors, though the sector has been taking positive steps to build relationships with our closest neighbours in the UK and Ireland, to secure supply chain opportunities and implement strategies to overcome potential external changes. And in support of this, local businesses can apply for a grant from the Business Improvement Scheme of up to £5,000 towards the costs of transitions required from Brexit. And our visitor economy has been the subject of much interest this year, with increased visitor spend bolstered for 2019 by further investment in our hotel and accommodation infrastructure. Visit Isle of Man will be taking forward a number of new initiatives this year, working hand in hand with industry to build a visitor economy that not only attracts more visitors, but that also underpins the quality of life we take for granted here in the Isle of Man through the development of restaurants, bars, events and activities across the island, and I wish them well. The Isle of Man continues to impress with the innovation and dedication demonstrated by our local business community. Be that in small start-up enterprises or large-scale developments, our ethos for being an island of enterprise and opportunities is carried throughout our whole economy. We continue to support this entrepreneurial spirit through our enterprise support schemes, all of which have been reviewed and upgraded last year. Whatever funds are required to help our economy develop will be provided, providing they can make a return and generate a return to the Exchequer. Support schemes have helped 120 businesses start up, 56 businesses grow, and created 140 new jobs since the start of the financial year, and interest in starting a business is at record levels. This budget proposes to make available £6 million for financial assistance to island businesses and potentially up to £9.5 million available in the Enterprise Development Scheme. As part of the 2016 budget, honourable members will recall that the Enterprise Development Fund was originally created with an initial £10 million supporting the overall objective of £50 million for the Enterprise Development Scheme. We have now reformed and opened up the scheme to allow local investors and businesses to work together with the Department for Enterprise to focus on job creation and to strengthen the requirement for co-investment. Whilst it is difficult to predict what impact these changes will have on the levels of overall investment in future years, both DfE and Treasury are committed to supporting businesses that will create jobs in the local economy through a range of financial support options. The work of this government has seen an increase in personal income, increase in job opportunities and an increase in the diversity of our business sectors. But unemployment remains low and skills shortages persist. Therefore, we will continue to support this government's commitment to growing the economically active population of the Isle of Man through the launch of a comprehensive locate strategy to attract more skilled workers, encourage the return of Manx graduates and help local businesses and recruitment agencies source and retain talent and attract more investment into the island. And £500,000 is made available in this budget to support this initiative. And furthermore, to encourage people to come to the island to work, I am proposing that we introduce a national insurance holiday rebate scheme for employees. This scheme, which will be proposed to start in April, with a proposed national insurance holiday for certain individuals who move to the island for employment. These individuals will need to be new residents to the island or to have been non-resident on the island for at least 5 years and must be employed with an Isle of Man employer with a salary of at least £21,000. In addition, and in order to encourage students back to the island to work, the scheme will also be extended to students who are resident on the island and complete their full-time course outside the Isle of Man if they return to the island within 5 years. Anyone meeting the conditions will be able to apply, therefore, for a refund of national insurance contributions that they have paid during the first 12-month period of up to £4,000. This scheme also sits alongside the relocation rebate scheme for employers to assist in business costs in offering relocation support to new employees. Additionally, our work permit reforms continue to help reduce bureaucracy whilst protecting the local workforce. Over 75% of businesses requesting permits are now satisfied with the system, and around 85% of applications are processed the same or the next working day. And honourable members, the island continues to enjoy an exceptionally buoyant labour market. Our unemployment rate is the lowest in Europe, standing at just 1.8% at the end of December 2018 when measured against the EU, compared to 4% for the UK and 6% more broadly across the EU. As a result of these low unemployment figures, spending on the associated benefits is low, and overall spending on revenue-funded benefits is around £8 million lower than budget. Given these figures, we have been able to reprofile the budget for 2019-2020 and expect, therefore, that £5 million less will be required for job-related benefits next year. Moving on, Mr. President, I can announce today that we intend to provide funding of £2.1 million from the Economic Development Fund for our colleagues in the Department for Enterprise to enhance the development of the Airport Technology Gateway, and we will support the Department of Infrastructure with an investment of £1.8 million for the Derby Development Initiative. Both projects demonstrate our willingness to work across government to invest in infrastructure, to allow small and new businesses to thrive, to attract large employers, and to support communities by using government support to sow the seeds of growth for a sustainable future. We cannot, honourable members, tackle our major social issues or improve our citizens' lives without a strong economy, and we should applaud the hard work and determination to succeed demonstrated by so many across our diverse business sectors. I want to acknowledge today the commitment to this island demonstrated by business entrepreneurs and leaders. Their hard work, their commitment means that income tax forecasts continue to exceed budget expectations. This year, income tax receipts are expected to be around £233 million, which is £10 million more than we originally estimated. And since this time last year, the number of taxpayers has increased by 439, the number of taxpayers in employment has increased by 605, and the number of employers by 73. Business, wealth creation, and the success and opportunities they bring means that this government and this Treasury will always be receptive and supportive of opportunities for economic growth. And I want to send this message today to business leaders. The Isle of Man will offer you and your businesses stability and support, and this government will play its part in supporting you in a challenging global landscape. We should all think for the long term, we should commit for the long term, and we should work together to tackle problems and shape this island for the future. Turning now to the taxation of companies. Last year, I asked the assessor to review the taxation position of the banks with a view to taxing all banking profits at the 10% rate from this year. The assessor has informed me that despite initial thoughts, in reality, very little extra revenue would be raised by taxing all banking profits at 10% rate, as deposit-funded lending is already charged at that rate. Also, our banks have been restructuring and working towards a new ring-fence model, and despite this, their tax contribution continues to increase. I therefore see no reason at this time to increase that burden further. Indeed, to bring this tax forward could have a reverse and negative effect on this income stream. Honourable members, I believe the foundations we have put in place in previous budgets, the measures we are proposing in this budget, and the strength of our economy will confirm and enhance our status as an island of enterprise and opportunity. Honourable members, we can be confident that we are a responsible island. We cannot be complacent and must recognise that in an environment of international political and economic turbulence, the environment around us is changing and indeed challenging. However, we can be confident amongst this that we are meeting our international standards. During 2018, a new international tax standard was developed initially by the EU and now by the OECD's Forum on Harmful Tax Practices. It requires certain companies operating in a no or low income corporate tax jurisdiction, like the Isle of Man, to meet substance requirements. The Isle of Man is committed to meeting international tax standards, and we have a long-standing policy of compliance with those standards set by such bodies as the OECD, the EU and FATFA. This work is sometimes complex and time-pressured, and the results are generally out of our hands. I would like to thank the assessor and her team for their hard work and dedication over the last 12 months to meet this international deadline. I am sure that we have done as much as possible to ensure that we continue to meet high standards and stay off any EU blacklist. It is vital, of course, that we consider the impact of the growing number of ongoing and credible external threats posed to the island's reputation and our economy. We already have our own robust systems in place to tackle tax evasion, money laundering and other financial crime, which meets international standard. But collectively, we all need to ensure the Isle of Man continues to protect our reputation and our economy going forward. And it is vital that we continue to meet those international standards if we wish to keep our general zero rate of tax for companies. And the new substance legislation is now part of that international package. I hope that this will clearly demonstrate to all our commitment to being at the forefront of being compliant and meeting international standards, building a platform which will continue to attract new businesses to the island and also encourage existing businesses to grow. Last year I brought forward a budget of substance, and I believe we have delivered on that. In December we introduced new substance legislation which requires corporate taxpayers to have adequate substance in the island, including having an adequate number of employees and a physical presence here. Not only does this legislation encourage real companies with real jobs to be based on the island, but it also ensures ongoing compliance with EU requirements. In this budget, we have provided almost £400,000 of extra resources for our income tax and customs division to bolster their international compliance teams. Within the income tax division, additional funding has been provided for resources to ensure that the island's tax system addresses EU and international requirements in relation to substance. A project approved by the National Strategy Group in 2018, and new primary legislation in December 2018, a redesigned online corporate tax return together with new processes and staff will be required in 2019 to ensure that the Income Tax Division is fully equipped to implement, monitor and enforce the new requirements. Honourable Members, following the publication of the so-called Paradise Papers in November 2017, the Treasury invited HM Revenue and Customs to review our processes in relation to aircraft and yachts. As a result of that review being requested, Customs and Excise undertook an internal review in relation to the VA treatment and ongoing assessment of aircraft. That has resulted in the need for additional staff to undertake this work, and it has been considered necessary for us to commit to these staffing levels for the longer term to avoid any doubts about our ability to assess future aircraft liabilities. Additionally, the Customs and Excise budget has been increased to strengthen its law enforcement team. This will ensure that the division is prepared for the UK's exit from the EU and ensure that the recommendations of Moneyval are fully incorporated into everyday activity. In further support of our commitment to meet our international obligations, the budget provides an extra £297,000 to establish the International Cooperation and Asset Recovery Team on a permanent basis after a successful pilot scheme. This is to allow the team to be resourced to adopt a zero tolerance in relation to money laundering and preventing terrorist financing. In 2017-2018, £148,989 was confiscated from 18 cases and £536,000 forfeited under the Civil Cash Register Scheme. Similar success is being experienced during 2018-2019. And therefore, on top of the funding I've already outlined, a further £707,000 of capital funding has been provided for the procurement of a system to enable digital searching of information to facilitate timely anti-money laundering and combating of financing terrorism investigations. And furthermore, £87,000 has been allocated to the Cabinet Office for a policy advisor to advise and support on the development of anti-money laundering and terrorist financing and related crime legislation to ensure that we comply with the recommendations of Moneyval. Mr. President, this is an additional £1.5 million, therefore, to ensure that we meet our international obligations. Honourable Members, Moody's assessed our institutional strength as very high given our robust and transparent institutional framework. They further noted we have established a good regulatory framework for our e-gaming sector, and in support of that we have provided £145,000 to the Gambling Supervision Commission to ensure it retains the necessary expertise to continue to develop appropriate regulation and ensure compliance with that regulation. To support our ambition of excellence in regulation and compliance, we have also provided an additional £93,000 of funding for the Financial Intelligence Unit to help improve the depth and scale of investigations it is capable of undertaking, and a further £157,000 to the Information Commissioner to support his officers in the growing workload following the island's implementation of the General Data Protection Regulations. Treasury has been working closely with the key stakeholders to deliver on the objective of strengthening our legislative framework. This not only delivers credibility to the wider world, but it creates certainty for our local businesses and opportunities for growth. For example, work continues to modernise civil debt recovery, add further stability to our banking sector, and enable money held in dormant bank accounts to be utilised for local good causes. Legislation has either already been introduced for scrutiny or is due to be brought forward for consultation in the coming months. And to ensure we can continue to deliver well-regulated and efficient services post-Brexit, we will top up the Brexit Fund to £2.5 million. This will allow departments to bring forward the necessary regulations for trade and other services in order to ensure that we successfully manage after exit day. Mr. President, honourable members, our results to date and those set out in our 5-year plan demonstrate that we are being financially responsible. Next year, we again expect strong income tax receipts. The budget assumes income tax receipts of £230.5 million next year, with total income exceeding £1 billion for the 4th year in a row. But we must remain mindful of the challenges ahead, in particular the depletion of the public sector pension reserve, which is forecast to happen in 2021-2022, when we must realign our finances to cope with an additional revenue cost of £45 million. And of course, we must take care with our forecasting, and in that respect I suggest that prudence is a rather attractive value. The Manx National Insurance Fund is held by Treasury and as of March 2018 had a book value of £794 million, which was an increase of £37 million from the previous year. The National Insurance Fund remains and will remain an important national asset. The interest from investments from this fund and increase to national insurance receipts has enabled Treasury to cover the shortfall in recent years between income from national insurance contributions and benefits expenditure. In March last year, this Honourable Court approved a significant piece of legislation that introduced to the island the new Manx state pension. As a result, the contracted out rate of national insurance will cease from the 5th of April, and all workers on the island will start to contribute towards the new Manx state pension. For employees who are currently in contracted out pension schemes, this will mean a small increase in the amount of national insurance that they contribute. This, of course, includes the majority of public servants who from April will incur an additional 1.6% increase in their national insurance contributions. However, with these changes in place, Our actuarial predictions now predict that the National Insurance Fund, which was predicted to run out in the 2050s, is now set to run until at least 2072 and possibly beyond. We will await the next actuarial report with interest. But it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge that workers in the public sector are having to go through a significant readjustment to their take-home pay and conditions as they face higher contributions both to their public sector pension and higher contributions to their state pension. I thank them for their patience and understanding as they invest in their long-term pension security. Yeah. With low unemployment levels in the current year, our national insurance income is significantly better than budget, and spending on the state pension, which is funded from that income, is also reduced. Therefore, we expect to have a surplus of more than £11 million on the National Insurance operating account, most of which will go back into the National Insurance Fund for future generations, further sustaining the longevity created by the changes that we have made and are making. In terms of pay, there are still challenges remaining. Whilst this budget includes an allowance for 2% for pay awards, this is below inflation, and representative bodies are seeking a higher award for their employees. Balancing the cost of pay awards with the overall budget remains a challenge for both the Treasury and departments. The pay award for public service employees has been announced and is above the level of budgetary allocation. Therefore, for 2019-2020, departments will be expected to meet these additional costs from within their existing budgets. Honourable members, last year I said we would be introducing a new approach to budgeting by looking at priority-based budgeting. That process is well underway, but in order to be effective is taking more time than anticipated due to the detailed and complex nature of the work. The Department of Education, Sport and Culture has been able to dedicate a resource to this project and expects to be in a position to use their analysis for the 2020-2021 budget. Additionally, work has begun in the Treasury and in Home Affairs, with plans for other departments to follow suit early in the new financial year. Honourable members, I believe we have succeeded in providing a solid foundation for a stable environment. Moody's confirmed our credit rating as AA2 stable. They noted that unlike many jurisdictions, we have no outstanding debt and substantial reserves. We are in a good position for the future, but we cannot afford to be complacent. Many uncertainties still exist. And since the agreement of the final Expenditure Revenue Sharing Agreement, or FIRSA, in relation to VAT in March 2016, for the island's share of VAT and other common duties has been based on the amount of irrecoverable VAT, or also known as sticking VAT, that is paid by householders, businesses, public and the third sector organisation when consuming goods and services on the Isle of Man. The level of this non-recoverable VAT was initially determined through household, business and tourist surveys that were conducted over a 12-month period starting in January 2013. The results of those surveys established the island's provisional share of duties for the years 2014-2015 through to 2017-2018. During this period, the island's share of VAT and other common duties amounted to £1.2 billion. However, that agreement, the FIRSA agreement, requires the expenditure survey process to be repeated at least every 5 years, and since April 2018, the Treasury has been working closely with the Cabinet Office to complete a new series of surveys. The outcome of these surveys will be used to rebase the island's share of VAT and other common duties for the years 2014-15 to 2016-17, and to determine the island's provisional share of indirect taxes for the years 2018-2019 to the years 2022-2023. The results of the current surveys will not be known until later this year, and I hope in time for the budget next year. Honourable members, Staying with government finances, the Securing Added Value and Efficiency Programme, or SAVE programme, continues to work within departments to improve the efficiencies of our public services. A number of external reviews have already been completed and projects are underway within departments and across government. But this journey is not an easy one. We continue to challenge our service delivery models in an attempt to reduce the cost of services whilst increasing the efficiency of delivery. From our policies decisions to the point of delivery, SAVE has identified a number of areas in which we will deliver tangible savings. The integrated transport strategy under development by the Department of Infrastructure should drive forward with £1 million of saving within the revenue budget over the next 3 years. This will include clear, tangible measures to demonstrate the effective and efficient use of government funding to deliver our local bus and heritage rail needs. We remain committed to investing in our infrastructure, as our capital programme illustrates. However, by improving the transparency and accountability of our transport services, there will be revenue savings to be realised, which remains essential to ensuring that our public finances continue to be sustainable in coming years. Later this year, the Department of Education, Sport and Culture will continue along a pathway to consolidate higher education services on the island. The SAVE subcommittee of the Council of Ministers continues to support this project, providing the governance to the Council of Ministers. This work within the department aims to grow the student population, thereby supporting an increase in our economically active population. This is a challenge where young people may choose to experience life and education off-island. And we are committed, as outlined in our programme for government, to provide an education which matches the island's skills requirements now and into the future. This includes a commitment to ensure value for money from higher and further education. And we recognise, in order to realise savings of at least £1 million within our higher education provision, and that in order to provide education and training to meet both business and individual student needs, a new, modern, innovative higher education partnership working model is essential. By securing and improving ongoing learning pathways in our community, online and through the University College Isle of Man, we are committed to ensuring the best local opportunities for our students. As I have advised this Honourable Court, we continue to support the work of the Legal Aid Committee to ensure the provision of legal aid in this island is efficient, effective and sustainable both now and into the future. We recognise criminal and civil legal aid fall within the overarching principles of access to justice, which is a fundamental cornerstone of our society. By extending this project's remit to become one of access to justice, we will have the opportunity to review the island's legal aid provision as a whole and whether any aspects could or should be changed or improved. The overarching principles of access to justice and quality of service should be in place, and if there are potential efficiencies and savings to be made, then this project will seek to identify them. The SAVE programme and its process of appraisal and identifying opportunities for change has been focused on facilitating reform whilst identifying savings and efficiency improvements. This is an ongoing challenge for us. Informed, evidence-based decision-making will continue to underpin our commitment to deliver savings when necessary. Treasury continues to improve the budget process to identify priorities and work with departments to evaluate and improve our understanding of budget allocation to our services. But if initiatives such as the SAVE programme are to be successful, then departments need to be ready and willing to accept new ideas and implement change. If those ideas and implementation are blocked, then there will simply be no progress. 2019 will see the SAVE programme refocusing on a collaborative rollout using priority-based budgeting to inform our spending priorities across the public sector to address our competing need for spending within a climate of ongoing revenue spending scrutiny. Fairness and equality in accessing government services remain key principles throughout our programme for government, and we must ensure that our budgeting approach, financial accountability and continuous service improvement, where possible, deliver savings and efficiencies bearing these qualities in mind. Honourable members, there is an unidentified £15 million of savings written into the Pink Book. We are carrying risk with our budget, but overall performance is negating that risk at present. But I have said it before, I will say it now, and I will say it again. There is no room for complacency, and departments cannot be allowed to sit back and relax controls. An executive government must be pushed to think innovatively about service delivery. Treasury will not be releasing the handbrake when it comes to bids or spending plans. Mr. President, we can be confident that we are a sustainable island, both now and into the future. And continued investment in our infrastructure remains a strategic priority for government. We have reprioritised our capital spending programme, and this budget, and for the next 5 years, contains £479 million of capital spending on infrastructure, healthcare, schools and our heritage and leisure industry. This government is investing to secure our transport and communication links, as well as supporting schemes to stimulate sustainable economic benefits to the community. From an infrastructure perspective, we will be investing in ensuring that our transport links are maintained and enhanced. In the 2018 Highway Satisfaction Survey, 57% of our island residents said they were satisfied with the conditions of our roads. However, we must recognise that investment must continue in order that at least we maintain or improve that statistic. Therefore, significant investment is planned in our road network over the course of the next 5 years, and we have almost £48 million of capital investment programmed in, with a further £20 million for further years after that. Many of our visitors' first impressions of our island will be formed as they leave the sea terminal or the airport. Colleagues will have seen the commencement of works for the Douglas Promenade project, and this budget sees £3.1 million forecast of the overall £21 million 4-year investment being spent. Additionally, a £1.9 million further investment will be made to bring the Promenade Walkway up to a standard that will match the adjacent areas, including adding added protection from storms. Investment of £1 million will also be made to improve the construction and safety of the A5 at Santan, this being the primary link to our capital from the airport. A further £5.6 million is planned for 2019-2020 to ensure that our airport is compliant. Project at Ronald's Way focus on safety and efficiency, as well as ensuring that the infrastructure can support the increasing size of aircraft preferred by the carriers who provide the services to key destinations. We will hear in the coming months about the progress made with the Liverpool Ferry terminal project, and there is a £30 million provision within this budget to deliver this scheme. For our on-island transport, I have made provision of £7.3 million in this budget for the ongoing replacement of the bus fleet to ensure that we have a modern and efficient public transport network that maximises and minimises revenue costs and maximises fiscal and environmental efficiency. The budget also identifies funding to ensure that our island continues to be a special place to live and work, as well as supporting our well-being and the visitor economy, with the continuation of funding of £3.4 million for active travel and a programme of enhancements to our national hills, glens and forests. And in order to support our heritage and tourism offering, a number of schemes have been combined to provide an annual consolidated fund of £4.5 million for our heritage transport. And whilst on the theme of tourism and transport, we will support the investigation and evolution of schemes to update Douglas Harbour and make provisions for a cruise berth and pleasure craft pontoons. Additional funding of £250,000 has been allocated for the investigatory stages of the Department of Enterprise's wish to review the provision and potential increased use of the grandstand. And to ensure we meet our national and international obligations and support the goals of the programme for government, this budget includes £23.5 million for the next phase of the regional sewage treatment strategy, a range of refurbishment and treatment solutions, and £1.7 million for a new special waste facility to replace Wrights Pit North and provide a strategic solution for the future. We have also provided £1.9 million to provide a long-term solution to deal with the silting of Peel Marina. The proposed solution not only ensures the marina can be used effectively, but aims to establish a long-term solution for the storage of the removed material, which it is hoped will be able to be used to remediate areas of historic mining damage. Our seas and rivers offer much to our economy, environment and our transport links, but we also need to invest to ensure that we are protected from them where climate change may cause a threat to life and property. This budget sees planned investments in 2019-2020 of almost £3.3 million of design and construction work prioritised through studies involving private consultants, DEFRA, the DOI and the Manx Utilities Authority. In the last two budgets, we have brought forward support totalling £3 million into our education budget, money that will provide support to young working families through preschool credits and now support for families with students in higher education. But of course, education is also about planning for the future. That is why £2.3 million will be spent in the next year preparing the Newcastle Russian High School, and £400,000 is scheduled to be spent on preparing works connected to the Science, Technology, Engineering and Maths block at QE2. And St Mary's is also scheduled to have £600,000 spent on an extension scheme. We are investing in our children's education. Digital strategy, honourable members, is a key element of this government's programme. As the first programmes complete their delivery phase, new initiatives have been started, including extending digitalisation in the Department of Health and Social Care to include clinical notes and electronic prescribing, initiatives in the Department of Infrastructure, including a central platform for the management of public sector housing, and the creation of Smart Services programme. In total to date, approximately £7 million has been committed from the Digital Strategy Fund on projects that will deliver cashable benefits of over £12 million and indirect benefits and efficiencies estimated to be in the region of £25 million. On top of this, we have almost £9 million of technology schemes within the capital programme, including the £2 million investment in the fibre optic network that I referred to earlier. Honourable members, it is also appropriate that I propose we bring forward a new community fund to support our UNESCO biosphere status. The Isle of Man is rightly proud of our biosphere recognition, and as part of this year's budget, Treasury is proposing to make £250,000 available to assist with the development of community projects that are in keeping with this recognition. It is intended that this match-funded fund will be administered by the Manx Lottery Trust and will provide a maximum grant of up to £25,000 to match fund costs associated with projects that can demonstrate a clear community benefit in line with our UNESCO recognition. In essence, the three stated pillars of conservation, development and learning will form the key assessment criteria, but the exact interpretation of the requirements will be the responsibility of the Manx Lottery Trust. The key target is supporting community projects that develop and enhance our environment or help with the provision of community service. These would be one-off, clearly identified capital or revenue costs and set against match funding of 70 to 30 for registered charities and 50-50 for all other organisations. And, honourable members, in discussing our environment and sustainability, it is right that I explain why this budget is bringing forward almost £1 million of additional revenue support for farming over the next 3 years, and why a further £1 million is set aside to aid and support the transition of the meat plant. The importance of agriculture, food and the land economy should not be underestimated, and, if you forgive the pun, it remains a challenging landscape. Nevertheless, it is when major political and economic change takes place that the value of our food production comes to the fore. Whether we like it or not, we need to have sustainable agriculture and we need to support our farmers to achieve it. The Department of Environment, Food and Agriculture will have their budget increased by £1 million over the next 3 years at £350,000 per annum to support and reform the Agricultural Development Scheme. Similarly, If you're a farmer producing meat, you need to have the facilities to slaughter it. It is absolutely right that we demand the meat plant operate as efficiently as possible, but in order to provide some security, further funding is made available to support the changes that are taking place and to give confidence for our farming industry. We are investing, honourable members, to ensure that we are a sustainable island. Honourable members, this budget has been designed to support the programme for government objectives. It has also been assisted by focus groups who attended public meetings in Ramsey, Douglas, Peel and Castletown, and it has been refined by parliamentary input. I thank all those who have contributed. Honourable members, I welcome the publication yesterday of the Common Select Committee report into fake news and disinformation that has become so rampant on social media. Disinformation being defined as the deliberate creation and sharing of false and or manipulated information that is intended to deceive and mislead audiences. Well, I am pleased today to reach out beyond the purveyors of disinformation to tell you that we should be confident that we are creating an inclusive and caring society. An additional £6.6 million of welfare payments in this budget to support the less well-off in society. £13.7 million in healthcare facilities. A £5 million commitment to support the changes recommended by the Health and Social Care Review when that report is published this year. Personal allowances up to £14,000, helping our families tackle the cost of living. Child benefit up by 5%, providing more support for the family heartbeat of our society. Our national insurance receipts in surplus by £11 million. I'm pleased today to reach out beyond the purveyors of disinformation to tell you that we should be confident that we are supporting an island of enterprise and opportunity. Despite the backdrop of continued international, political and economic uncertainty, the island is demonstrating remarkable resilience. Unemployment below 1%, income tax receipts up, numbers registered for taxation up, £6 million being invested in business support schemes to diversify and build economy and jobs for the future. And I am pleased today to reach out beyond the purveyors of disinformation to tell you that we should be confident that we remain financially responsible. This budget includes a further £11.8 million for funding public services next year, a commitment for £479 million of capital investment over the next 5 years. These investments are building for the future and providing jobs and securities for thousands of families. Yeah. And even with all this being delivered, our plan to meet the budgetary shortfall caused by the public sector pension support and create a platform for future sustainability is on track to deliver. Honourable members, the environment around us is changing, but with change also comes opportunity. We must recognise that we have solid foundations on which we can adapt to meet our challenges. But in a year that promises international political and economic uncertainty, there is no room for complacency. But there is room for confidence. And, honourable members, this budget provides a platform for that confidence in our island, in our economy, and most of all, in our people. I commend this budget to this honourable court. Yeah.